So the title of my presentation is the Global Seminar Connecting Students Globally via Video Conferencing to Discuss Global Issues of Sustainability. And let's go right into the topic. That was the beginning, what you see here. Many years ago, we had one TV with a split screen where we could share or show our students and videos. And at the beginning, we even used ISDN. So we came a long way. If you compare what we have nowadays with Zoom available, we made a big jump forward concerning technology. So what is the dilemma or the problem description of the whole thing is, you could in one line say that there's only a small number of students which goes abroad to gain international experiences. But internationalization is a strategic key factor for higher education, I would say for any university in the world. But when we look at the data, after more than 20 years of Erasmus program in the EU, we can say that only a small share of students is going abroad, between 14 to 20% at BOKU, which is related to the number of alumni, not to the number of old students, but to the number of alumni. And that shows you, and bet your numbers are comparable or similar. So the question is, what do you do with the students who are not going abroad to give them an international experience? And therefore, the course I'm talking about, the Global Seminar, is part of an internationalization at home strategy with the aim to provide mobile students with a course that prepares them to engage internationally prior to the departure, or to provide iMobile students with international experience at home. And therefore, the course Global Seminar was installed at BOKU. And I must say I was insofar lucky, because when that happened, our university in Vienna was right at the time of making a reform of the study programs. So there was a high chance of getting a new course approved at our university. And that happened around the beginning or the millennium. I remember when I first was sent to the conference about the global seminar at the BOKU University in the US. That was 2 days before 9/11. So I was just preparing my presentation, and then a colleague called me and said, "Rainer, are you flying in 2 days to New York?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I don't think that you're going to fly." So that was a little bit a tragic thing connected to the global seminar. Nevertheless, a year later, I finally could participate in that conference. And there I got to meet the founding partners, you could say, of the global seminar. Initially, that was an idea of 7 universities, with Cornell University working as a leader. You see there the map with founding universities, reaching from Australia, University of Melbourne, Sweden, Uppsala was part of it, Wageningen, Zamora University, Earthling, and the university in India. At the peak, this network had around 35 partner universities. And you see the internet address, theglobalseminar.org, that doesn't exist anymore, because after some years, the funding ran out for the global seminar. So there was a grant which belonged to the Cornell University, and they financed all activities like running a website, making an annual conference. And after some time, when the money was over, the whole thing stopped. But we, as a group of 4, 5, 6 universities in our cluster, we continued to run that course. But what a good thing was, at the beginning, we had these regular conferences where the teachers could meet each other and share their ideas how to run the course. And it was a great thing to develop common ground and commitment. There's a picture of a global seminar conference which we had in Guadalajara in 2007. So let's talk about the idea. So much about the historical background. Now let's come to the concept. So the idea is that global sustainability needs an intercultural, interdisciplinary, and innovative concept for teaching. And the idea was, let's bring students from all over the world together to present and discuss their ideas how to solve complex global cases of sustainability problems. So we never wanted to put the professors in front of the camera to give lectures. No, we said, let's bring the students on the stage and they should share their ideas. So the group in which BOKU is and me is involved is a group of 6 universities. From Europe, we have the University di Udine from Italy. Then from France, we have from Toulouse, the ENSA. And from the USA, we have University of Georgia, University of Florida, or to be correct, Florida A&M, and University of Virginia, called Virginia Tech. And there you already see the first challenge. We have different time zones, but it works really fine when you only have American and European partners in the network, because the Americans, they start in the morning, 9 a.m., and we in Europe are around 3 p.m. We had 1 year trial with a Japanese university, but those guys had to show up at night at the university. So that's the reason why they only participated once and then they dropped out again. So next challenge, and that's really the biggest challenge to run a course like this, are the different starts and endings of university semesters. So here I have an example of Florida A&M. They start, like all the American partners, at the 5th or 6th of January, their semester, which is called spring break, and then they end of April. And in between, they have a spring break of 1 week, which normally is in March. In Austria, BOKU starts end of February, the semester runs until the end of June, and in Easter we have 3 weeks Easter break. The French colleagues start beginning of January, go until end of May, and have in between 2 breaks. One is in March of 2 weeks and in April again. So you can see this is really important that you organize, or let's say these different semesters make it difficult to find enough dates for the video conferences. And in fact, we have 4 video conferences every semester. And for this 4 video conferences, we have to find the overlapping semester time frame. Concerning the topics of the video conferences, I brought the list here. By the way, at BOKU, the course gets 6 HCTS, which is pretty a lot compared to other courses, but it depends. The American partners, they are giving, I know, up to 3 or 4 credits. So it's a different way of how much credits the students get. We have the first video conference in January, the second one end of February, and then we have organic farming in March and GMO in the food chain in April. At BOKU, the course I finish always at May, because we already started January. And it's funny because officially the course belongs to the summer term, how we call it, or the spring semester. Nevertheless, I advertised the course already in December before Christmas to tell the students, listen, because we work with American universities, you have to show up in January to the classroom because this course is starting unofficially earlier. And I tell you, I'm doing this since 17 years, and that always works pretty fine. The connecting question, when you look at those topics, so food culture and obesity, organic farming, genetic engineering in the food chain, there is a connection. The connection could be that we discuss with American and European students about what kind of agriculture and food systems do we have, and what kind of agriculture and food systems do we want. How are those cases connected to the dominant form of agricultural policy and agriculture? How are they related to issues like social equality or fighting hunger? So we at the beginning, we started with different cases, but over the years, we agreed to use these three topics because they are connected to each other, and they really give a nice way for the students to discuss about it. The concept, the didactic concept is that, of course, it's a video conference based course, but it's also case study based. It's a blended e-learning course, meaning we all give a mixture of face-to-face lectures and video conferences, and then we have an e-learning platform where we discuss with the students, offer additional learning materials, share scientific articles. So you know that term, the flipped classroom. This is also included in this course. It's a combination of traditional face-to-face lectures with the flipped classroom concept. A good case study, a good topic should have a global dimension, a strong dilemma, and a controversial viewpoint. So if you look at genetic engineering, that's perfect. Yeah, it's a global issue. We have a strong dilemma, how, for example, response to climate change by having new plant breeding methods available. But on the other side, we have consumers who don't want those. So then we have these different positions between USA and Europe. That's the perfect cooking recipe for very lively and vivid video conferences. Okay, so let me show you what I call the learning cycle of the global seminar. So for each case or topic, we are using 3 to 4 weeks of time. And the first step is that each of us teachers, of local teachers, goes into the classroom and makes a face-to-face intro into the topic. So when I go the first time before the obesity conference, I give an overview about what is obesity, what are the main drivers, what is the range and the amount of different obesity rates globally in Europe, in developing countries and developed countries. So they get an introduction into the topic. Next, second step is I release the students towards self-directed learning plus teamwork. So they get from me reading assignments, they get articles to go deeper into the topic, to work and make themselves smart about what is the whole thing, how can you analyze the obesity problem. Then in the third step, we offer a chat session where we bring the American and European students together to discuss about questions related to food culture and obesity. In the fourth step, we have the video conference where the students present their position for the topic. For example, they share their view, which kind of measures should the government take, or the private sector, the retail sector, the food industry to fight obesity. And then in step number 5, after the video conference, the students write a reflective essay of 3 pages, which should contain what they knew before the video conference, what they learned by reading the articles, by studying themselves, then what was their experience during the video conference, and finally, what would they do to solve that complex problem. And I tell you, this is, by the way, the course is on master level. This is very difficult for the students at the beginning. to write a short paper where they bring the pros and cons, make a thesis, antithesis, and a synthesis, and where they really try to express their opinion based on theory and data and in a scientific way. But what I want to really teach them is to express a theory and fact-based opinion they have about a topic. And the first years when I read their essays, it really got me aware that maybe we are teaching the wrong things at the university. We have, from my point of view, a way too strong emphasis on please repeat the facts, please repeat the theory. Yeah, it's like we give them a stimulus and then we test their short-term memory. But not often enough do we tell them, listen, this is the theory, these are the facts, think about it, and now tell me your opinion and defend it and argue. Yeah. So after step 5, we go to the discussion where we discuss what was your experience during the video conference, how did you like it, what do you think about the cultural differences, what do you think about the position of the American students, and so on. Over the years, we took step 3 out. We tried it many years, but it never worked well. And that had to do with the different, let's say, engagement and commitment of the students and teachers of different universities. So often, many American students didn't show up, yeah, or some European students didn't show up. Then we figured out that the professors were not putting enough pressure on the students to participate in those chat sessions. So after some years, we said, you know what, let's skip it. It never works like we wanted it to work. And let's use instead those 4 questions. Good. So you may be interested how the grades, how I'm grading my students. I use 4, how do you say, 4 measures of performance. One is based on the participation in class, on the reading assignments. So when I go to the classroom, you know, I sometimes I go into the classroom and I look at my students and I tell them, you know what we are going to do today? We are going to think together. Yeah. And then I bring some input, but then I call them by name and say, what is your position? What do you think about this, Mr. Meyer or Mrs. Müller, and so on? So I really am going for this interaction and want to work and think with them in, how do you say, Echtzeit, life, you know. I want to show them how do you analyze complex issues. So 25% they get for the group presentation, 25% for the reflective essays, and then each of them has to write a final paper of minimum 15 pages where they tell me at the beginning of the semester, they choose the topic they want to write about. It has to be of a global sustainability topic. I brought here some examples. Some is to write about plastic in the ocean, land grabbing, insects as protein source, climate change and plant breeding. So, you know, we never run out of topics. Okay, so let me give you an example what I want to teach them or how we approach these cases. So here we have the genetic engineering in agriculture. And what I want to teach them is that they should look at each case from different perspectives. And I didn't mention my complete background. Steve was so nice to describe that I'm coming from the marketing point of view and the consumer behavior side. But my background is I studied agricultural science. So I also have a science background. And I'm really grateful for this because I really want to force the students to look from different faculties at the thing. So we have, for example, the market situation. Of course, I'm from marketing. But then we talk about the legal regulations in USA and Europe. So there I come from the law side. Then we look at agronomy. Yeah, we look at what is the impact of GMO in plant breeding? What are the benefits and costs of farmers? So we talk about the science behind it. We talk about what is the difference to hybrid breeding, for example. Yeah, what is the problem with superweeds, with resistances? So then we talk about evolutionary biology and how resistances develop. Then we look at the genetic engineering, the technology side, like what is CRISPR? What are the future applications? And again, then we go to the consumer and politics side, and we say, what are the positions of different consumers, NGOs, farmers, retailers in USA and Europe, and why are they different? So you could say there is a social approach, an economic approach, and a science approach, but also what is not there on that slide, a very strong ethical approach. I always try to engage in discussion with the students about the ethical dimension. What are the social implications? What are the environmental implications? Let me give you another example. Obesity and food culture. Yeah. Here we talk, for example, about how is obesity related to social inequality. And there are the papers out there, the studies, they show that the less wealthy people are, the more they're prone to develop obesity. Yeah. And now with coronavirus, it's perfect, you know. I mean, not that the coronavirus is perfect, but there's a strong connection between social inequality and coronavirus. And we are using this year where we connect the corona pandemic with obesity and we show them the similar data. And when you have US students in that classroom and European students, this gives a very nice ground for discussion because they are total different worlds, total different approaches. You know, we can discuss what is social equality. Why is it important for some? Why is it not important for other countries? How do they different deal with it? So that's really a nice way to do look at from different angles at these things. And there you also see the main difference to normal courses and lectures at universities. Yeah, what is a normal course? A normal course is we go out into the classroom as a scientist and say to them, listen, there's the data. There are the methods. There's the theory. Yeah. We always talk about the abstract concepts, theory, theory, theory. Yeah. And in between the students fall asleep. But here the approach is different. I come with a case and I say, listen, we have a problem. Too many people are getting sick and dying earlier because they are eating or living in the wrong way and they're getting overweight. How would you approach it as a decision maker? And in fact, this is what our students, when they leave university, most of them become decision makers and leaders. And they never are sitting in their office reading theories and think, how can I apply this? Yeah. No, they come from the other way. They get a case, they get a problem, and then they have to analyze it with all its complexity and have to think about the outcome on a social, economic, and science level. That's why I like so much this approach to teach. But what you also see is, and that's the challenge, how can you as one single teacher cover all these aspects of philosophy, ethic, social, economic, science? Yeah. This is only possible if you're a professor in marketing. Okay, that was a joke. No, what you do is you invite experts to the lectures. Yeah. So that's what I do. I used, for example, for many years to invite our professors at BOKU who work in the field of genetic engineering to give a nice presentation about the basics in science. Because my students are from agricultural science. Of course, they have heard about GMO, but they are not so in the depth in this topic. Or there you have a picture of Alex Vostri, which I invited several times. He's running an NGO in Tanzania, and those guys also have Zoom. And so we sit together and he's talking about how he's working with organic farmers in Tanzania. On the right side, you have a guy from the US Embassy, which I invited. He's an expert for foreign agricultural services from the USDA. So I invited him to talk about the US position concerning GMO. Yeah. So this is pretty helpful to do that. And I'm coming now to the end of my presentation. But to help you understand how a course like this is run, the most crucial part is how do you run the video conference? Yeah. So what we do, we define before every video conference 4 weeks in advance between the teachers, what are we going to do? Yeah. And I hope you can read that. This is an example where you see that was in 2018. The moderator was Nicolas Garlay from Toulouse, from the EMFA. And there we say, okay, we had 4 universities presenting, maximum 10 minutes. So we don't let the students talk too long. Sometimes we even reduce the presentation time to 7 minutes because we want at the end enough time for an open discussion. So in there, they have very specific tasks what they should present, like BOKU Austria, describe the rate of obesity in USA and Europe, show a model of the drivers behind it in developed countries, then show some data about the sugar and meat consumption. And there's also an interesting part, make a small survey with students at your university by collecting food frequency data. So you can be really creative. So we send out the students, they did interviews, and then they present their results. And the rest of the video conference is then dedicated to open discussion. And there we talk, what are useful measures to fight obesity, which measures should be set by the government, which by the private companies. Is there a relationship between meat consumption and climate change? Is there a connection between social inequality and obesity? So that gives you a lot of angles to look at the topic. And I put together the learning outcomes in respect to different knowledge types. And there's a German researcher called Spinner. I don't go into the word game now. And he developed 4 different knowledge, kinds of knowledge. And he said the first thing we are teaching at university is orientation knowledge. In that part, that means I teach the students to understand the terminology about GMOs, organic farming, whatever. Then source knowledge, they should know the relevant databases. Then we teach explanation knowledge. They have to apply theories. They have to know the facts. They have to think, discuss about scientific papers. And then the last part, which normally we never or only rarely teach at the university, is the action knowledge, where they really go into action and apply it and do something. In that case, I wanted the action is justify your opinion. Again, the images we create decision makers, we create leaders. They are public persons. They have to go out into business meetings where they defend their opinion. And this should be based on a theory and on facts and data and not on fake news. You know, guys, look how the world is changing. We're getting more and more irrational. But on one side, we have a world which is generating knowledge on an exponential level, but at the same time, it feels like our society is falling apart with all these different echo chambers. Okay, impact on internationalization at home. We collected the data from 2011, 12, 13 of the partner universities, and we had 340 students, 337 students who participated in the global seminar on these 6 universities. At that time, we also had a grant, an Atlantis grant, which got money from the US and European Union. And we even could send 19 students from Europe to the USA and the other way around. But that was the exception. So normally these guys stay at home. So the challenges, when you ask me, are the commitment of the teachers. You need to have a common ground, a common understanding or shared mental model how to run the course, which means you have to bring those guys together. Let them sit together, let them talk, let them drink a beer. Yeah. We, in our course now, many guys dropped out from the beginning, but we are still 3 people from the beginning. From 6 universities, 3 of us met in person. That's enough to keep it going. Yeah? So you have the different time zones and you have an unequal knowledge and skills of students. Because the US universities often have undergraduates in the course, and we Europeans offer that course on a master level. So sometimes you have students who are reading the presentation, who cannot talk freely, who have troubles in arguing and justifying, but this is something you can work around. So last slide. What do you need to offer a similar course? A group of 3 to 4 universities. Bring the teachers together in person before the course starts to let them share their ideas, to develop the concept, how to run it. Select 3 topics for the semester. You saw we had 4 video conferences. The first video conference we use to introduce the students. So the students give a presentation of their home university. The American students talk about their football team. The BOKU students talk about the BOKU ball, or I don't know what, and or their Blasmusikkapelle. And then they say a little bit about their name and what their hobbies are. Okay, so you need 3 topics for the semester. You have to agree on the protocols for the video conferences, and you should keep the classroom size not too big. From my point of view, the optimum size is 10 to 15 students. Well, let me finish with a picture of my students from a global seminar class. What I always do with them in May, at the final unit, we go to our park around BOKU. Each of them is bringing food, and then we sit together and discuss about the issues of global sustainability. Thank you very much.